Meanwhile, another big story that broke late yesterday. One of the three officers involved in the death of Brianna Taylor has been fired. The Louisville police chief called the conduct of now former officer Brett Hankinson, quote, a shock to the conscience and a discredit to the department. 26-year-old Taylor was shot and killed in her own apartment back in March when police served what's known as a no-knock warrant. There's now a movement to ban those all over the country. The other two officers remain on administrative leave. Greg.
The deaths of Brianna Taylor, George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, they've made the issue of police reform a top priority in this country. Dermot Shea is the commissioner of the NYPD, by far this country's largest police department. Commissioner Shea, thank you for joining us this morning. Always appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you for having me, Greg. Sheinelle, good morning.
Monday, you testified as part of the New York Attorney General's ongoing independent review of police protector interactions in recent weeks. And you said, our trust has taken a hit. I think we have to regain some of the trust. How do you go about doing that, Commissioner? How does the NYPD regain that trust?
Yeah, I get that question probably, Craig, once a day. It starts with talking. It starts with meeting with people, being out there. And I'm not just talking about me. More importantly, my police officers, the men and women that put a uniform on every day. When you look at what we've done over the last 6 years trying to build trust, I think we've come very far. Instituting neighborhood policing. I mean, I will tell you this, just for full disclosure, I am getting tons of emails and calls supporting the police. People are scared right now. So that's a part of the story, too, to come out and support the police. But trust is gained, in my opinion, very slowly, and you lose it very quickly. And a couple bad incidents, some here in New York City, some across the country. And in this environment, that's the world we live in now, and people in law enforcement realize it, and it's up to us to fix it. Nobody's going to fix this for us.
I'm glad you highlighted the support for police as well, Commissioner. During that hearing, there was one incident from last month specifically that showed police vehicles driving into a group of protesters. It really became, unfortunately, a symbol to a lot of folks of unacceptable use of force. You defended the officers involved. You said that they were set upon and attacked, and thankfully they were able to get out of that situation with, to your knowledge, no injuries to anyone. Are you comfortable seeing that kind of interaction with your officers on the streets of New York City?
That particular incident, listen, anyone that sees that video is troubled. I am confident that when a review of all those facts, there's multiple videos of that incident, as well as it's important to know that what was taking place in those several days, and that was not the only incident like that, where people were essentially trying to trap police cars, trap police officers in cars, and corral them in. A lot of people are talking about the police tactics in dealing with protests. There are tactics by a small number of people to corral the police officers in and attack them. That was what was taking place there. Throwing garbage cans at windows, assaulting the cops, trying to drag them out of the cars. So that I respect greatly the Attorney General. I think she'll do a great job in reviewing all the facts. It's also under review by the two other agencies here in New York City. And I am confident that when, as well as our own Internal Affairs Bureau, when all the facts are reviewed, it's never going to turn into a pretty video. But I think you have to ask yourself, what would you do if you were the police officers there? Thank God nobody was seriously injured. What would you do if you were the police officer there as you are being trapped in that terrible situation? People are trying to assault you. And I don't think you'll find an easy answer to that.
Commissioner, let me ask you, this weekend there was more talk about the appropriate use of police force. As an NYPD officer, I'm sure you've seen this video shown using a banned chokehold on a man in Queens. I want to show the video to people at home, but I do want to warn you that the video is graphic. But we think it's important to ask you about this because the officer we know is on suspended duty without pay pending investigation. And the man arrested that people see here, Ricky Bellevue, he went to the hospital, and Mr. Bellevue's attorney said, her client was released from the hospital and is calling for the officer to be fired and have criminal charges brought against him. Given the attention these types of chokeholds have received since the death of Eric Garner in 2014, why is this still happening?
Yeah, that's a great question and statement, and it shouldn't happen. The chokehold has been banned in New York City for over 20 years, well over 20 years. I took swift action when I saw that video. The video is about 35 minutes in its entirety. The negative piece of the video lasted about 5 to 10 seconds, but that doesn't change anything. The chokehold is banned. I took swift action. I suspended the officer, and we have to do a better job of making sure our officers comply with that. The officers, if you see the entire 35 minutes, did so much good, and then it was erased by the one officer's tactics in 5 to 10 seconds, and we have to be better than that. If
you have an officer who is doing the ban chokehold, should he or she be fired?
So we have a process here. Different states have different processes, but here in New York City, in New York State, they're entitled to a due process. What I could do is what I actually did do. Suspended the officer without pay. There will be charges in a formal process now that's underway. And when it comes to me through that disciplinary process, there's actually a trial internally. And there'll be a range of a penalty that could come from a low end to a high end, which would include termination. That is a possibility.
Commissioner, really quickly, I want to get your take on this movement to reallocate money, to take money allocated for police departments and shift that money to social services or schools or something else in a city. It's gotten unprecedented attention over the last few weeks, the theory being that investing in communities would address societal problems. You could fix a lot more on the front end than you can on the back end. Is that an effort worth exploring?
I think it's 100% an effort worth exploring, but it is a deeply complicated conversation. And these decisions, I believe, should not be made quickly in a closed room with the lights turned off, if you will. You have to remember why some of these duties were put onto the back of the police department in the first place. And the answer is because it wasn't working as it was before. I think you should always reevaluate. Maybe there's a better way to do things now, and we are certainly open to that. But I think you also have to take a look at the crime rates and the lack of consequences that exist in not just New York City, but many places right now. And that's a part of the discussion as well. When you talk about defunding and you talk about head count, I mean, we are in a situation right now in New York City. We think we have the model for the whole country. And unfortunately, it's being block by block dismantled right now. And we have significant increases in gun violence. We have a court system that's shut down. I mean, to me, if the Supreme Court can hold hearings during COVID, there's no reason why the New York State court system can't process arrests. And we have a situation where violent criminals are walking around on the streets and shootings and homicides are increasing. And we have to do better as a society.
Commissioner Dermot Shea. Commissioner, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sheinelle, Craig.